Imagine yourself in the Roman Empire, the heart of the ancient world, a land where marble arches frame the sky, aqueducts sing quietly of engineering brilliance, and shaded courtyards hold whispers older than memory. But beyond the stone and splendour, beyond the forums and flowing togas, there pulsed something more elemental, a ritual, a rhythm, a life shaped not by speech, but by silence, the life of the gladiator. This is not a tale of a lone, bronze-clad hero. It is a remembrance of thousands, disciplined, often unnamed, sometimes revered, but more often forgotten. They lived at the edges of applause, moving between performance and quiet return. Tonight, we won't shout their names. We will walk softly beside them, step by step, breath by breath, in stillness. Our path will unfold gently, in 4 quiet chapters, each a doorway into the deeper corners of an ancient world. First, we will begin in the training grounds, a place of discipline, repetition, and rising breath. Then, we will step into the orchestrated grandeur of Nero's spectacles, where spectacle and shadow intertwine. Next, we will explore the symbolic world of armor, ritual, and quiet transformation. And finally, we will sit among the noble class, where power whispered beneath the roar. So, if you're ready, breathe. Let the day go. The torches flicker, the gate stirs, and in the hush of history, we begin. Chapter 1, Shackles and Sand, the Ritual of Training. It does not begin with grandeur. It begins with quiet, the soft chime of metal links, the muted rhythm of sandals on coarse stone. A life, not yet shaped by glory, begins far from the cheers of Rome, in distant provinces, among hushed cells beneath open skies, or in stone barracks washed with the faint light of dawn. Many who arrived here had known other names, other paths, soldiers from distant lands, men claimed by debt or decree, even those who chose this life as a final offering to fate. Imagine waking before the sun. The air still clings to the coolness of night, scented with oil for sore joints, and the distant breath of laurel smoke. Around you, rows of straw-filled pallets. Silence, not from fear, but from understanding. There are no questions here, only rhythm. The Ludus, or Gladiator School, was a world within walls, not designed to keep the world at bay, but to hold in what was becoming. It was not a place of punishment, but of process. At the Ludus Magnus, among the largest and most structured, discipline moved like clockwork. The Lanista, more steward than teacher, measured progress not in praise, but in endurance. Here, strength was shaped like stone under water, slowly and without ceremony. At first light, training began, not with weapons, but with the body. Footwork drawn on sand in circles of chalk, balance practiced until instinct quieted doubt. Movements repeated, not to impress but to internalize, not elegance but economy, not battle but breath. Wooden practice swords called rudis followed, weighted but not sharp. Hours spent before the palus, a simple wooden post striking, pausing, correcting. The body began to remember what the mind could not yet accept, that endurance was the quietest kind of power. Gladiators were not all alike. There were roles shaped by physique and spirit. The Mumio, grounded, shielded, crowned with a fish-crested helm. The Retiarius, light and agile, casting net and trident like woven wind. The Secutor, forged as the pursuer, helmet smooth to evade entrapment. Each learned not just how to fight, but how to become, to embody a form, a pace, a silence. By evening the barracks grew softer, simple meals of stew and bread, muted voices in many tongues, Greek, Punic, Gallic, a lullaby of other homes sung to worn beams. Not all within these walls had been brought by force. Some were octorati, volunteers drawn by hardship or by a longing for something unspoken. But once inside, the differences blurred. Here, all bore the same calices, the same night sky. There were healers too. The medicus tended swelling limbs and tired breath. His hands could ease discomfort but not promise futures. Only another day, only the next quiet step. And yet, within this repetition, some found a kind of stillness. Structure gave rhythm to what was uncertain. The body, shaped by discipline, became its own prayer, if, on a quiet night, one stood at the edge of the high wall, looking up at the soft glow above Rome, they might hear distant laughter, distant music. the city beyond the gate, and perhaps wonder, did those who walked there ever think of the ones training here, just beyond their comfort? But morning always returns, as it always did, and it always begins the same way, with shackles and sand. Chapter 2, The Games of Nero, Applause and Illusion. Now you know the feel of the wooden practice sword in your palms. You know the quiet ache that settles into your shoulders with each sunrise, the way breath moves in rhythm with effort. But from beyond the walls of training, like the soft tremor before a storm, rises a distant murmur, not of battle, but of expectation, of thousands gathering beneath the Roman sun. It is the day of the games, though you may have trained for months, even years. No repetition prepares the heart for the sound of a gate slowly parting. Your armor is not just functional, it glints for the crowd. The helmet holds memory. The arena, radiant beneath the sun, draws you forward, into its silence, into its rhythm. In Nero's Rome, these games were more than celebration. They were expression, distraction, a way of shaping public feeling through performance. Nero was a lover of scale and spectacle. His games flowed with symbolism, days of carefully arranged matches, unusual pairings, processions and performances designed not merely to impress, but to control. The crowd did not cheer merely for skill. They watched for theatre, for messages hidden in matchups. A veteran might face a newcomer. A fighter might enter with exotic animals at his side. A reenactment might reflect a myth, a triumph, a memory. Victory brought gifts sometimes, fame, murals, offerings. But it was never promised. Each appearance in the arena was a roll of the dice. The crowd remembered names, but the sand remembered footsteps, and when a decision had to be made, it often came not from combat but from silence. A still hand raised, a gesture from the emperor, a murmur among the noble class. Then life resumed. The crowd returned to their figs, their chatter, their wagers. The music of Rome played on. For the gladiator, a quiet return, to barracks, to bread, to breath. Another day held softly in the palm of the present. Chapter 3, Helmets, Scars and Ritual, Symbolism in Combat. As the arena empties and the last sunlight fades from the sand, we turn to what remains. The symbols, the rituals, the quiet truths beneath the surface. A helmet was not only protection, it was transformation. Once worn, it turned the wearer into myth, into archetype. A Mamilo, a Thraex, a Secutor, each with a story written into design, a shape that whispered of memory and identity. The weapons carried stories too. Each strike was a movement in a silent language. The gladius, brief and decisive. The net, a web of uncertainty. The trident, distant, deliberate. Rituals mark the unseen boundaries. A quiet word before stepping forward. A charm stitched into leather. A gesture toward the earth. These were moments of grounding, of meaning, of survival, not just of the body, but of the self. Scars became chapters, some chosen, some given, some worn with quiet pride, others hidden, but each a sentence in a longer story. A body shaped not only by movement, but by time. Some left behind tokens, inscriptions, helmets resting on stones, coins placed in silence, markers not of conquest, but of transition, a return from role to person. And in the beginning, always, the oath, the Sacramentum Gladiatorum, a vow to endure, spoken in clarity, a contract not with glory, but with presence. And for those who made it through, the rudes, a wooden sword gentle in the hand, a symbol not of violence but of freedom. The quietest, most powerful mark of all. Chapter 4, Nobles in the Crowd, Politics and Power Plays. As the city gathers under the awnings of the amphitheatre, a different kind of performance begins. Not on the sand, but in the shaded seats above it. Here the senators and nobles play a quieter game, a look, a smile, a withheld cheer, each a message, each a calculation. The emperor watches from his pulvinar, raised slightly above all others. His presence alone shapes the tone. A hand lifted, a glance held. Power, expressed without word. The games are not only about combat, they are about display, identity, prestige. Who sits where matters, who sponsors which match matters more. A family might host a munus in memory of an ancestor, but all know it is also a statement of power. Gladiators too became part of this language. Gifted, befriended, supported, or forgotten. Some nobles wagered openly, others whispered wagers through servants. A glance exchanged could echo for weeks. The crowd, vast and layered, was not unaware. Panem-it-circense, bread and circuses, was more than a phrase. It was a rhythm, a release. And emperors learned to keep it flowing. Some rulers became performers, Nero, Commodus, entering the arena themselves, blurring the line between stage and throne. But in every seat a choice, a reaction, a message. And the gladiators saw this too. They learned when to fall, when to resist, when to signal. They understood the weight of being seen. In this space, strength was measured not only in strikes but in silence, not only in force but in presence. The nobles returned to villas, the fighters to barracks, but both carried the imprint of the same sand. Two worlds, one arena, bound not by equality but by reflection. And as the sky darkened and the final steps echoed on stone, what remained was not the roar, but the hush, not the clash, but the memory, and the silent rhythm of Rome,